Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today I have a special guest with me. It's Scott Roeder. He's a crime scene reconstruction expert, and he's the owner of Evidence Room. And it's based in Cleveland, Ohio. He has done some work on different kinds of news reports for Ross Coulthart of Australia for some of his programs, and he's also someone who has testifies in courtrooms with regard to crimes that he's helped reconstruct. And I guess I'm just going to get some words from you here, Scott, about this, about what you do before we get into what the main topic we're going to be talking about today. Of course, is going to be the Las Vegas alien, but I think people should know who you are and what kind of job you do in the court.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I'm a big fan of the show. I love the show. So I'm happy to, contribute in some way. I've been a crime scene reconstruction expert, practicing since 2001 is when I opened up my company, Evidence Room in Cleveland, operate, out of Cleveland, Los Angeles. And, I've done work internationally over the years. The scope of our work is we get hired to augment investigations either for the police or for the defendant in a criminal murder case or in a federal type of action. I started off in the business creating forensic computer animations for medical negligence cases and car accident reconstructions, really any kind of a catastrophic accident or crime that leads to serious bodily injury and or death. We've animated it in one shape or another. Over the last 15 to 17 years, I became an expert in police-involved shooting cases and shooting and crime scene reconstruction. I worked on the Oscar Pistorius case in South Africa, which is where I got the opportunity to meet Ross Coulthart out of Australia. Now, I've worked on 1,100 plus individual cases over the last 23 years or so. Over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been doing work with Ross on unsolved murder cases in Australia, and we became friends. And of course, then I became, fascinated with UFOs and aliens and extraterrestrials, and kind of became a consumer of this stuff through the pandemic, and that kind of thing. You start, finding more ways to entertain yourself, and I started my own little podcast called Crime Scene Time Machine, where we break down historical murders like John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy Jr. And things like that, Marilyn Monroe. We did Jeffrey Epstein, which I may or may not have been shadow banned about. But in any event, that's the kind of stuff we do on a day-to-day basis. I do crime scene reconstruction. Yeah, we testify in court as an independent, impartial witness. As to the facts of the interrelationship of the evidence on a particular case to a degree of scientific probability for the jury's consideration of either sending somebody to jail or getting somebody out of jail or millions of dollars in some kind of a lawsuit. So yeah, that's what we do.
So you've been in court. How many times do you think you've had to testify on some of these?
Well, I've given deposition over 80 times. I've testified in court live over 25 times.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you and then you met Ross, and is that when your interest in UFOs started up when you met him, or was it before that?
Well, a little bit before that. I've always been a fan of James Dolan. I think he's a fantastic historian.
Richard Dolan.
Richard Dolan, yes, right, Richard Dolan. I've always been a huge fan of his. I've watched all of his documentaries, and I really loved, his take on history, particularly as it related to John F. Kennedy assassination. And so that led me to physically go to Dallas and take dimensions and do a shooting scene reconstruction of the John F. Kennedy assassination, where I think, it should be common knowledge by now that it was a conspiracy and that there was multiple people involved in the assassination. And frankly, there probably really, in today's standard, would not have even been enough evidence to convict or even indict Lee Harvey Oswald. Not saying he wasn't involved, but he certainly probably did not pull the trigger, certainly not by himself. In any event, so I started thinking, well, why? What's going on? And that led me into the JFK. Well, why would anybody want to kill JFK? I'm I was, he was murdered before I was born. So this was more of a historical thing where I look back and, man, I found some weird stuff that kind of led me to UFOs. And then Ross Coulthart really capitalized on that with his book In Plain Sight, and then his documentary. We talk all the time, and he sends me videos that he thinks are legitimate, UFO craft, and we talk. He's a very serious person. He's a professional investigator. He's not somebody, and he's given, I think, a lot to the subject in that he has suffered credibility loss amongst the what I would call mainstream reporting world, which he was once atop of that category. So now, he's kind of, I think he took a little bit of a hit. You take a hit when you come out and you talk about UFOs because people automatically think, well, you're crazy or you're fantastical or, whatnot. But it's until you do some research that you can make a determination in a sober mind with some sort of a process about the reasonableness of these things occurring or not. And, frankly, I'm on the wagon that this phenomenon does exist in our present day and in our recent history, and probably goes back to the beginning of all recorded history by man. So, who am I to say that these things don't exist? I would rather look at evidence and try to determine one way or the other on a case-by-case basis, is there any merit here? Make that determination and move on to the next thing. And I think that's what exhausts people in the world, that there's so much time you need to spend to analyze even one story that might be a fly-by-night story to determine if it's real or not, because things are unraveling seemingly so fast that it's hard to have the energy to follow through and make some kind of an opinion one way or the other. So I guess that's my initial take on the whole subject, right?
Yeah, so you're someone who researched it and came to the conclusion that this is real. You're not. You didn't have a personal experience with seeing something yourself or anything like that, or?
No, I've never had any kind of an ET experience in my life. I've had experiences that I think were extraordinary with regular humanity, but not with any entities that I can't explain specifically. No, I've never had an experience. No.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who researches this would come to the conclusion. Even though I did have experiences, I believe anybody who researches this would come to the conclusion that there's something going on. There's something here. There's a presence here. What's going on? I don't know all the answers, but there's most certainly something here.
There's something going on, and the more you look at the body of the phenomenon, the more I think you have to open your mind up to learning things that might not be a part of your normal reality. Like, well, there's a chance this stuff's true, or maybe this is a simulation, or maybe this is some kind of a alternate dimension or physical reality that because we only perceive things through the senses that we have, right? And who's to say there aren't other things or beings that have different senses that we're interacting with on a daily basis? I just you have to keep an open mind, I think. Yeah.
And and now recently we've had a lot of different things going down. Of course, you have the whistleblowers and stuff, but at the same time, we get smacked in the face with this Las Vegas alien story, which is incredible. A lot of people you have two different camps here. Basically, you have some people saying, "Oh, this is a hoax right out of the gate." You have some people looking at it and then coming to the determination that it's a hoax, and then you have people who are looking at it and say, "Wait a minute, I don't see hoax here. I don't see a hoax here." For a lot of different reasons I've been talking about on the podcast, and I think that you have some of the same ideas on why it's not a hoax.
Well, that's why I reached out to you, because I thought that you were breaking it down in a way that made sense to me, and that you use, and that's why I'm a fan of your show, because you use common sense to break down BS from non-BS. And ultimately, that's why I like listening to your show, because I feel like I'm getting an honest assessment without any kind of fantasticular situation. You know what I mean? It's not that fantastic when you just explain it normal, right? But so I wanted to break it down with like my basic process of when you're reconstructing a crime scene or an accident or a murder, anything like this. In this case, an alien encounter. You try to have a system, right? So the first thing I looked at was, is there any compelling evidence? And I think there was a couple of pieces of compelling evidence that are divergent from each other. We have the meteor. When I think there was, in fact, a meteor, I think most people are going to agree there was a meteor that night. It was at the peak of some meteor shower, according to NASA and some other people. If you believe NASA, but there's all kind of, but I'll give them a credit. Okay, yeah, there's a meteor shower. But then I saw two particular videos that purport to be from that night. I can't verify, but it shows something traveling alongside the meteor, and from a ground level ring camera view, and then somebody filmed it from the ground, filming it up, and it had something in the tail. It seemed weird to me, but it was just one piece of evidence I wanted to look at. So, well, what am I looking for, without overdoing it with some kind of confirmation bias? And then the second video is the body camera footage of the police officer, which also a couple segments. One catches the meteor coming down. I'm not a meteorologist or anybody that analyzes meteors, but I've seen 3 meteors in my life. None of them were green. I don't know, maybe if that's weird or not. But it also seemed really slow. The meteors that I've seen go past so fast in the sky. Like if you blink, you miss it, right? This one, it seemed to not be that fast. I don't know. And then the body camera footage evolves into the officer immediately reacting to it, and then there's some conversation, and then they go get the call to go see Angel's family, where we have their investigation talking to the family, which I think is extremely authentic. The police were clearly shook. Angel's family were clearly shook. And then we have Angel's video that was taken from the female at the scene, who maybe didn't see anything, but she recaptured it the best she could. And I think that's why there's some confusion. There were a couple of things that I looked for in that video to indicate, well, where am I looking at? And one of the things I sent you yesterday was a video where I took a still frame where I saw the father, or the older gentleman, point. And when he pointed, I took that still frame and I made a straight line in the digital computer, and I followed his finger to where he was pointing, and he was pointing to right in front of that camper. And in front of that camper, I isolated, zoomed in, did some filters. I sent you that image. You can bring it up now if you want.
Yeah, I'm going
to bring it up. That was the first anomaly that I saw that I thought was bizarre. And I found 3 others that I shared with you the other day that I think you shared with your people already, that were in different areas.
So this photo here.
Right. Yeah. This was one of the first photos that I came up with from what I consider to be the first posting of Angel's video online, which we were able to get pretty clean. Now, who knows if it's the first post, but it seems like it was the earliest post online of the incident. And I was able to zoom in next to one of the forklifts, and this is what I found. I show this image to some people and they're like, holy crap, it's an alien. And I show this image to other people and they're like, I don't see anything. So it's interesting. I wonder what your people see. Now, we have other images coming up that I think are much more compelling than this because they're moving images, but this is one of the still frames that I was able to look at. You think you see something there, correct?
Yeah, I think I see something there. And this is just so everyone knows, this is near that heavy equipment that's in the yard, right? This is from that area.
This would be to the right. This would be to the right or to the rear of the forklift. So in the center of the screen, more to the right.
Okay, I'm going to switch over to one of these other photos here.
This one here. This one. Now, the next few I think that you're going to show are all the same area at the same time, just different techniques to reveal what was in this area. Now, this is the front of the heavy equipment. The black square there is the front grill. And there seems to be something in front of that front black grill. And that's what we're picking up there in that shape on the inside of that black square.
Okay. And I'm going to just go back because there was another image that you have on here that's a different.
Yeah. That's the
one here.
same. That right there is the same or similar or near still frame of the front of the heavy equipment, the black square showing the front grill of it, and something in that foreground in a very similar or same or following still frame from the other one in the black square.
Very interesting. It
could be something moving.
Yeah, I mean, this looks like something to me. I mean, it looks like a head of something. It looks like a head of, like Skinny Bob. I think that was what you said.
Right. I called this one Skinny Bob. Yeah.
I'm going to go forward here.
Yeah, and that one there I called the Scream Face. Yeah.
Now, these are just some still images that you captured.
Right. This is the still frame video. Right. This looks like a video there.
Yeah.
That's 5 seconds long, so you can go ahead and play that.
Okay.
Okay, so that video right there is the basis for what I think I was able to demonstrate, that there's something there moving, and it's in between. It's to the right of the head of the older gentleman and to the left of Angel, I believe, wearing the red hat. So play it one more time just so that we establish where we got the video from.
Okay.
Right there. So play it one more time and try to pause it when you see Angel's head and the other gentleman's head. And there's that open frame in there.
Okay.
So go ahead and play it. And right. Keep going right there. Stop that right there. So right here, in between the red hat of Angel and the right ear of the older gentleman, there is a black space. And in that black space, on this version, which is the original unedited version, no filter, just cropped in to the top 1/4 of the screen, I thought I saw something moving back there. So go ahead and play that one more time, and that's where you want to focus in, everybody. Right here. And that's only 1.2 seconds. It's 1.2 seconds. So if you go to the next video, I take that 1.2 seconds and I enhance it. Okay, right there. Even before you look at it, right there in between the Angel's hat to the right and the older gentleman to the left, you see what could be determined as 2 circles on some type of a vertical body right behind the play sign. Now, this has got a long still frame in it, but it's got some movement at the end. And then we go in on the next version and we try to isolate it further. So go ahead and play this. That's a still frame. Just let it go. I just was focusing in on that image with the 2 circles, and then okay, and then it moves at the end. And that, so I take that footage and go to the next video. Okay. So now here, what I've done is, this video is 2.4 seconds long. It's best played in a loop, but go ahead. Now this is zoomed in. We've got a duotone filter on it, which brings out color contrast. Okay, so it's not editing, it's not putting anything in the film, and it's just that 1 second that I've slowed down to about 50% with the duotone color. So it's about 2.5 seconds now, and it's zoomed in. So let's take a look at that. Okay, play it again. See, that's why this one's really good to play this on a loop.
Yeah, we're gonna pull it up. I do have a loop. We're gonna pull that up right now. I could. Yeah. I'm gonna get out of this.
But if you go to wait now, go to the next one, and we'll save the loop for last.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, go to the next video.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Wow.
And play it again. Now, do you see something moving there?
Yes.
So do I. And if you and the reason why this particular point in the film is so important is, and we can bring up the original video if you want, but in the original video, the reason why I picked this moment is, one, there was another guy that picked this moment, and I think the reason why I picked this moment was because it was at the moment where the older gentleman, I'm assuming that's his father or uncle, he freezes and kind of moves to his left a little bit, like he was frozen. He was shocked, and he moved slightly to his left. And Angel was frozen for a second and then moved to the right, almost in the reaction of just like, what is that? What is that? And the father did the opposite. He was like, what's that? And it created a space to show exactly what they were looking at. And it's that space that we're finding, whatever that is, which I believe we can establish is moving and is not a part of the forklift. It's not an optical illusion, and it's there. Whatever it is, it's there, and it scared them half to death.
I'm going to play the no filter version here.
Yeah. Right there. It's hard to see there.
You could see it though, a little bit. A little bit.
You can see it. Yeah.
You can see its eyes glowing, it looks like.
Yeah. You can almost see the eyes glowing above their hats before they even get into it, which I just realized now. So look above the top of the hat line for a couple of what look like spotlights or circles, and those are in the same exact area of whatever this thing is that moves when the heads separate.
You're right there.
Yeah.
So you see the eyes actually beforehand too, yeah?
Yeah, like right above the head.
Wow.
And then watch when their heads move, boom, it's right in that area. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I spent hours on this today. I mean, since the time I woke up, it was fixated in my brain. I was like, I didn't feel like I had enough meat on the bone to have a good conversation about it. I did some, but I felt like it wasn't where I needed it to be. And then so I worked on it this morning, like starting at like 7:30 a.m. until like maybe an hour ago. And and this is what I came up with was whatever that is I think that's what scared them.
Yeah, you can see the eyes glowing as they're walking in. They didn't notice it yet. And then they did. Then they did notice it until they did.
And when they noticed it, they sure did notice it. Because it moves. I think they notice it because it moves. And I think this is the first time on any analysis that we've been able to capture something moving.
Yeah, I'm going to go to that last video. This one here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is I think shows it the most clear.
You could see it moving.
Yeah. And boy, do they get out of Dodge at that point, and it fully obscure the view. Now, mind you, this is 1 second exactly of footage, which has about 30 frames in it. And this is at 50% speed. This is about 45% speed. I could slow it down to 10% speed, and we could try to see every single frame that's available there. But then you lose the movement, and I think the movement is what's the compelling part of this, because if it's just a shadow or it's some kind of visual anomaly, well, shadows aren't going to move like that. Your imagination isn't going to move like that. You can't manifest something to move inside the screen. And I think that's why I like this video, is because you can clearly show something in the background that at least the first two, Angel and the uncle, or his father, I think his father, that they're reacting to, and it makes sense to me that that's what they're reacting to, and whatever it is, it's moving.
Yeah.
And it startles the life out of them, where they go pray in the living room the rosary or something, probably not a bad idea.
Probably not.
If I saw this thing too, I'd probably be doing some Hail Marys,
Yeah. Going back to the prayer book. Yep. Well, for
Yeah,
sure.
right. Hey, I'm a Catholic schoolboy, born and raised Cleveland,
Yeah.
Ohio, and you always think you shake loose of it until you're on an airplane that's crashing, or until you see an alien in your backyard, and boy, you remember all the words of the Hail Mary real quick, I would think.
Well, yeah, I was an altar boy for 10 years, and yep, I know all the prayers they're still
Oh
ingrained
yeah.
in my brain. You'll never forget
Yep.
them.
Yes. Yep.
And if you saw something like this, the prayers are going to come in handy for sure.
Right. Also, probably a change of pants.
Probably, yeah. You're probably going to have to jump in the shower quick.
Right.
Yeah, this is something else, Scott. This is. I think there's something there. So there's something there. I mean, I guess it comes down to what's your opinion on this. What do you think?
Well, my opinion is I think it's authentic. And that was the other thing. As I was going through it, I wanted to try to, come to some type of a conclusion, right? Because having these open-ended things, it could go on forever. Like these subjects last forever. And, we all have other things to do, right? So, but I want to come to what I would consider a fair analysis. I've given it a serious consideration. I've looked at the evidence. I've analyzed the evidence. I've conducted some testing. I have not gone to the scene. I'm not going to do that. But maybe somebody should. I think they should have the night of. There's some things in the investigation that I wanted to get to on the process part. So the claim was that 2, 8, or 10 feet non-humans with glowing eyes in the yard behind their house. Okay, I think I see something with glowing eyes. I can't really, at this time, I haven't made the steps to determine the height. But based on how far it was away from them and the relative height that it seemed, it certainly wasn't tiny. So it could be 8 to 10 feet tall, but you don't know the body posture of what it is. So it could be crouching down. Certainly, I think it was moving, whatever it was. And then do multiple witnesses have similar stories without their interests converging? That's important. And I think the answer to that question is yes. And the multiple parties are Angel's family and the police. The police, last I read, are not considering it a hoax. They're considering it an actual, genuine, authentic 911 call. The police were scared. They didn't want any more to do with it. That's why they didn't flood that area with lights and do trace evidence testing. Look for footprints, look for bodily fluids, look for something that was left behind, and if it was a prank, you might see a kid might have dropped his shoe, or somebody might have dropped a cigarette butt, or whatever. There's things that you can look at to tell if somebody was there or not, and you could make a further determination of that. But that wasn't done. But I don't blame them, because I think they were really scared. This isn't what they're trained to do. They're trained to respond to somebody getting shot by a gun, not by an alien being in the backyard. They don't know what to do. They don't have an alien in the backyard textbook. That falls under procedure 3.4. Interview the alien respectfully, read him his rights. I mean, they're not trained to do that. You can't expect them to do anything about it more than you and I would know what to do about it if we were encountered in that situation, because I think you're caught off guard. So I think
this is above the police's pay grade. I don't think that this is part of the deal. It shouldn't be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, according to whistleblower David Grush and Ross Colhart's story, there is an entire team of specialists that are handling this kind of a thing, right? So maybe they are going to jump on the case, and we could find out through a congressional inquiry what they found. But certainly the police aren't going to do anything about it, nor can you expect them to do anything about it, except maybe save you from the alien if it's eating you or something like that. And they might be able to shoot at it, I guess. So that was the physical evidence part that I was a little disappointed we didn't have. Now, there is something that I find also interesting is that there's 16 minutes of missing body camera footage from the police. Could be a number of reasons for that. But in my experience of doing this for 23 years, when there's missing footage, it's usually not missing because there's nothing on it. That's just my indication of it. This is all me winding down to give you my opinion, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you have to look at confirmation bias, right? So I'm a little bit plugged in to UFO news and things like that. So I might be more predisposed to be keen enough to look into it, right? I think that I can set aside my prior information about UFOs and extraterrestrials to do a fair independent evaluation. Like when I was looking at other parts of this video, people are saying there's an alien by the fence. And no, it's not. It's a shadow. I could clearly tell in X-ray vision mode and in negative mode, that's a shadow. It was gone on certain modes. It's not something physical there, in my opinion. And then there was something in the background. That's clearly a palm tree. I looked at it from 10 different views of palm tree. I dismissed it. But then I found this. And then this was the thing that made me say, okay, now there's something to talk about. You know, as an investigator, we want more physical evidence. We're not going to get that here. So we have to do with what we have. And then you have to look at tampering of the population pool. And one of the things that we've learned that, you know, for example, February 3rd, 2011, there was an incident in Israel where a UFO was hovering over some monument or temple, and then it suddenly shot up in the air, gone, speed of light. And there were a bunch of different views, 5 different views from people that posted it immediately. They're like, we're not alone, UFOs, holy shit. Excuse my language, I didn't mean to swear.
That's all right.
But then the following day, and I learned this in a documentary, that there were additional versions of that event that were faked to dilute that actual event. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know. Does it sound like somebody that wants to do disinformation would do? Yeah, it does. Do we know that our government engages in disinformation? Well, if you believe Ross Coulthart and David Grush, absolutely there is. If you follow the UFO phenomenon or the assassination of a number of our leaders over the last 50, 60 years, you would say, yes, our government actively engages in disinformation against us on issues that they don't want us getting to the bottom of. All you got to do is look at the Warren Commission and the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and you'll realize how full of blank some of these people can be, even under the most formal settings. You look at what NASA did the other day, boring. They certainly did that to bore you out of interest. You know, so if they're not actively disinformationing you, then they're actively trying to bore the interest out of you so that you go away, right? You know, I've never seen somebody take the most interesting subject in the world and turn it into torture. Yeah. That's what our government does. That's what Congress does. That's what the Senate does. That's what NASA does. That's what they all do. They take the most sexy thing in the world that could ever happen, the biggest story in the history of mankind, and they make it so boring. You're like, well, what's the score of the game? Yeah. Because this sucks.
Oh, right? Yeah. NASA was terrible. That was a terrible hearing to sit through. I'd rather watch the paint dry on the wall.
I'm glad you did it. You know, I just watched your notes of it, and then I didn't have to do it.
Right. I mean, yeah, I'll take care of that one so you don't have to, because it was terrible to sit through. Actually, I did a live stream, and there were people who were joking during the whole thing, and so it turned out to be all right. But I don't recommend listening to those podcasts. That's just there for posterity now.
Right. Well, you did your research. You listened to it. I think that's why I like your show. Is you take the time to listen to what people have to say, and then you give your assessment on it, you know, and I think you've got great skills and abilities in doing that, you know. But when I called you, I was like, "Are you an ex-cop?" That's the first thing I thought, you know.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I guess overall, then I think that I think there's something there. I'm seeing some. Well, you pointed it out. I mean, I don't think these. For one thing, like I went through the reasons why it's not a hoax. For one thing, like I pointed out the other day. I mean, people they're going to say 10 foot tall aliens. I mean, come on. I mean, usually aliens, as we all know, in the everyone's minds, it's always 3.5 to 4 foot tall beings, and that's what people see a lot, right? You don't usually hear. There are reports of these tall ones, but you don't usually hear that. So if you're going to have a hoax, why would you go with these 10-foot tall ones? That's one thing. The other thing is calling 911 and taking that chance. There's just so many different aspects to this that I just can't see it being a hoax. The fact that people, the media is going to their door and knocking on the door and they're not answering the door, that tells me they just want their privacy. They want to be left alone. I mean, if they were hoaxers, they'd be looking for attention and hoping that they could get something out of it. So it's all the opposite to me for this. That's why I don't see a hoax. And now you have pointed out that little portion of video, which was actually somebody else did it last week. There was a little video that we were talking about. And then now you have actually got a capture where you can actually see that thing moving, whatever it is. And that doesn't look human to me. I don't know what it is.
I mean, if I had to give my assessment of it right now, I would say it's real. What they saw was real. And it was certainly real to them. And I picked up something that I wasn't expecting to see. And it's there. And they were responding to it in a very visceral way. So, who am I to say that their experience isn't real? I don't think it's hysteria. I think they saw something. You and I just saw something. The people that listen to your podcast and watch this, they probably saw something too. I'd be curious to see, maybe take a poll and find your people, ask everybody that listens to Extraterrestrial Reality, do you see something? Be honest. If you don't, say something. If you do, say something. I think that I have about a 60-40 split when I send that video to people in my orbit, family, friends, so on, girlfriend. Half of them see it. The other half, either they don't see it or they don't want to see it.
Yeah, that's a great poll. I'm going to use that poll on my Spotify today when I upload this later on. I will have a poll like that because that's definitely a great question. Are we seeing an extraterrestrial being in this little snippet of video that Scott Roeder has identified as significant?
I would say instead of extraterrestrial, let's call it non-human entity.
Okay. You're right. I mean, a lot of people out there, we're not sure. I mean, some people say, hey, maybe they've been here the whole time. Maybe they're living under the ocean the whole time, and we never knew it. Maybe they're interdimensional. Some people say that. Maybe they're terrestrial, whatever that means. Right. And there's all different kinds of different ideas. I say extraterrestrial just as a placeholder, right? I don't.
Yeah, sure. Like UFO. Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's a placeholder because I think it could change it. I mean, maybe the name of my show 10 years from now will be interdimensional being reality. I don't know, but for the time being.
That's funny. The one guy for Fitzpatrick, scientist.
Yeah, Sean.
When he testified at Congress.
Kirkpatrick.
Kirkpatrick. When he testified under that subcommittee, he said in a quote, we have no compelling evidence of extraterrestrial entities or beings. I think that's where the word soup comes in.
Yeah.
I don't think they refer to it as extraterrestrial. I think they refer to it as non-human beings or non-human intelligence.
I don't see how could anybody know, even them, after all this time of the cover, all these years, how could they know what it is? I don't know how they could know what it is. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, even if the extraterrestrials came up to it, we're from Zeta Reticuli. How do you know they're telling the truth? We just don't know where they're coming from. I mean, I guess I guess they can get away with that. They could say, hey, there's no proof of any extraterrestrials, but really they might be. We don't know where they're from.
Well, you should have 10 questions. Well, is there proof of 10 pestrels? Is there proof of interdimensional beings? It's not, but they're using that as a way to get out of answering the question. Semantics. Listen, I work with lawyers. The law is all semantics. When I've got the evidence dead to rights and I'm testifying on the stand, they don't come at me with the analysis of well, was your bullet trajectory wrong? No, they come at you with semantics to find some kind of a creek in it that they can squeeze through.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I think is going on here too. I think they're being disingenuous in a way because a lot of us are just. I mean, we're assuming. We all assume. I assume right now. And my personal feelings. I think they're coming from some other planet. Doesn't make me right. They could be coming from under the ocean. And they always been here or somewhere else or in another dimension, whatever. But the fact is, there's something here. But they're playing the semantic game, and they're able to say that and get away with it because they're probably not sure. I don't see how you could be sure. I don't know. I mean, unless you're hanging out, unless you're traveling back and forth with them to their planet, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you believe, anything of what David Grush has to say, and, I did not do the investigation. I read the story. I know the guy who did the investigation, Ross. I know he's, when he was doing a story with me on a murder of a woman by the name of Nadine Haag in Australia, near Queensland, he was after me, but every time I came to a conclusion, you sure about that? Show me. And that came up with a physical experiment involving blood and blood spatter and spray to prove to him the point that I was making. And he wouldn't let me, go on with just, I think it's this or that. I had to do an experiment to prove a forensic issue on whether or not this woman killed herself or was murdered. And, he was after the truth, and so I think, all I can assume is that he took that same vigor and investigation and that process into this story with David Grush. So, I believe what Ross says, and if he says that this guy's authentic and true, I'm going to side with Ross on that.
So does I mean, I don't know if Ross has talked to you about this case, the Vegas case at all? Has any opinion on that?
Well, he has not investigated it. He has not really even looked at it. His gut reaction, but listen, he's a human, right? His gut reaction was, it's a hoax. And I was like, why do you think it's a hoax? Have you investigated? I haven't even looked at it. Well, then why is it a hoax? How can you say that as a good reporter? And he was just upset because his story didn't get ABC, NBC, CBS mainstream nightly news coverage for David Grush. And he thought maybe this Vegas story was a convenient way to just take eyeballs away from his story, which is possibly true. It doesn't take away whether that story is true or false. It's just that story happened. And then the media would rather take that story because it's obscure it's obscure. It's more obscure. It's less straightforward. You've got Spanish-speaking people easily dismissed by large swaths of the country. You've got video that you don't know what's there. You've got people just guessing at things. It's what they like. They like very vague, wild speculation. Where on the David Grush story with Ross Coulthart, you have very specific, itemized, sworn testimony of, frankly, things that are way more spectacular of an alien in the backyard in Las Vegas. Way more spectacular from somebody beyond reproach from a credibility standpoint, according to the people who say they know those things. Now, can I think both things be true and live in the same space at the same time? Yes. But why did the media pick up on one and not the other? And I'll tell you why they picked up on one and not the other, because the one was easier to dismiss and the other one shook the reality in which their feet stand upon on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's good. I've been seeing from different sides of the UFO community. It seems like it's split on all of this stuff actually right now. I see some people who are contacting me, telling me, "Hey, I don't believe in this Grush stuff. I think he's just making some stuff." But I don't see that at all. I don't see that at all because again, he's been talking and with Congress and the Inspector General and sharing the documentation that he had.
If he's lying, he's going to jail. If he's lying, he's going to jail.
Yeah,
that's simple. Same with Angel.
Yeah,
if he's lying, he's going to jail too.
Right.
We better get a good lawyer. I don't see any motivation for these people to do that. Now, you listen, people. I heard Richard Dolan say this the other day on somebody else's podcast. He said, "Oh, how happy the government must be that their psyops are so effective that even the people uncovering the psyop are called psyops.
Yeah. That's a great point. I didn't see this one. What was that show? Because I did watch his recent podcast, but I didn't see this one. What you're talking. He always has some good points he makes. He's very
He's a mic. He drops the mic. I love that
all
guy.
the time, all the time.
He does his research, man. He knows history. He knows history, and he calls BS when he sees BS too. That's why I like him. I think he's a straight shooter. Same with Ross. I think he's a straight shooter. That's what I'm attracted to in this subject matter is people want to talk about, well, what can we prove, what we can't prove,
I keep telling people that people in the mainstream media need to educate themselves on this. I mean, I always say you should start with Richard Dolan's UFOs on the National Security State Volumes 1 and 2, because I mean if you need to get caught up on this, you should start there. Because then you're gonna walk away with knowledge, and you're gonna have an understanding finally. Oh, okay, I get it now. This is real. There's no way all of this is false. There's documentation. There's so much stuff in that book. He has it all nailed down, and it's there for the taking for anyone who wants to understand what's really been happening here for all these years.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot to this story that is not made convenient for you to consume. And if you think that if you only watch Fox News and CNN, you are severely underinformed as to what's going on in the world.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, I tell you what, Scott, I guess we should wrap it up. We've had a great discussion today, and I really
thank you. I had a lot of fun, Jim.
Oh, this is a lot of fun, and I appreciate you sharing this finding that you had in this video. This is fantastic. I think there's something there, and I can't wait to see what the other people are. I'm sure there'll be people out there in the world of the internet are going to be looking at that and talking about it, and we're going to see what they have to say. So that's going to be pretty interesting. So,
I'm curious to find out. Yeah, I'm curious to find out. And listen. I think something's there. I mean, I see something moving. So I'm convinced, in a very unspectacular way. Am I going to lose sleep over this? No. Am I not going to go see a band tomorrow night because of this? No. It's not going to affect my life in any way. It's just, you just acknowledge something might be real. There's something there, and then you move on to the next thing.
Yeah. This is just one part. I mean, as some people, like you accept it, I accept the reality that there's some presence here that's non-human, and they have technology that exceeds anything that we have. I've accepted that because for various reasons, and so I think that it's like, okay, in a way, it's like, so what? It's just a matter of we're talking like this all the time because it's like we just want the rest of the world to acknowledge this already, and we want more information. I'm interested to find out more. I want to learn more. I want to know what the government knows. How many are there here? What are how many beings are they aware of? Things like that. It just comes down to stop treating this like it's all crazy, because it's not.
I haven't thought about that. I think the only time that we're going to get any level of disclosure or admittance of knowledge by the government is going to be when we, the people, all agree to give all of the ruling class amnesty for all of their prior misdeeds. And once they have amnesty, they'll come clean.
Yeah.
But until we want their heads on a spike, you're never gonna get it. You're never gonna get it. But if we say, okay, you lied, but it's 2023, don't lie anymore. And like, okay, you get a free pass, then they'll say it. But if we want to hold them to jail for lying, they're just gonna hide the ball deeper.
I've suggested this, in different. I say the same thing. I'd rather, let's just let them. Don't worry about what they did. Let's just look forward after they come out. I don't care about, because I know there's people talk about lawsuits and people going to prison. No. We're not going to get anywhere by talking.
I hereby decree amnesty.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm with that. There's going to be people that disagree with this.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Listen, I'm not out. Blood. I do bloods and bullet for a day job. When I talk about the UFO stuff, it's not that I talk about it flippantly. I try to bring the same skill to it, but to me, it's the lighter side of life. Because listen, there's a million reasons why people suck, right? And I see
Yeah.
it every day. And yeah, maybe the aliens suck too, but we don't know that yet. So, we'll give them a chance to suck too.
There you go. All right, Scott. I really appreciate you for joining me today and for sharing this stuff. It was fantastic, and I hope we hope you come back again sometime for a
I'd
future
love
episode.
to. I'd love
All
to. And
right.
love to all you people out there in ET reality land.
All right. Until next time.